Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to Hold the Ball here. I guess as I sort of sit and reflect, we all know that this week has been a very controversial week regarding one team in particular, and this team already played, that was Manly, and they lost their game against the Roosters. Now, the reason why we all know that it was quite controversial was because of their attire they decided to bring. Now, obviously, we all know NRL teams always bring on different cool/weird, unique jerseys from week to week, and I, being a Warriors fan, understand that all too well. However, Manly, how do I say this? They sort of brought something unique. They brought the LGBTQ jersey. I don't know how to say this again, not disrespectfully, but the premise though is that because of that, there was a few players who decided not to play and pulled out, right? And there were some players who decided to play and still played. Because of this, it caused a bit of a split. Now, I guess the question isn't so much as to where I lay, but I think as to where I sort of see the two sides. I guess that's it. Well, you know, how do I judge? How do I judge the own two sides, right? And maybe I can put my conclusion somewhere. Now, from watching different YouTubers in the rugby league community, it's fair to me that there seems to be a bit of a split. There are probably some who are not saying anything that are pro and some who are anti, and there's some who are saying things and they're anti or they're pro, right? And ultimately, I don't think you can be wrong or right, because ultimately this comes down to your own personal opinion. Now, the reality of the matter is that this is a very controversial subject, whether you like to admit it or not. You don't have to be pro, you don't have to be anti, it just is what it is. It divides, right? It's much like the Red Sea, there is division. Now, with those players who pulled out, I think in my own opinion, good on them. Good. You should be able to do that, right? You should not have I suppose, a string, so to speak, that pulls you in and tells you to do what to do. You have every right. And I think Des Hasler and DCE came out and they worded it very well. It was well said. Ultimately, you can look at Manly, you can look at the boardroom, and you can say there was a bit of a balls up there. But at the same time, it's not like people were held at gunpoint saying they have to play or they don't have to play. You made your own decision, right? Now, we know in that case, there's been a lot of controversy, particularly to the players who made that decision. I don't need to name them, but you know what's happened. And obviously, we all know the players who have still played. Now, I can only speak of this from a Polynesian point of view. And again, I don't want to get too deep into the rabbit hole here of Polynesian ethics and I suppose politics per se, but I want to point out that you guys would have known in the name there was a few, there was a few Polynesian players there who played a little bit. And how do I say this? No matter where you stand, I think I want to congratulate them, right? They shouldn't be dusted as the bad or pro this or what, No. I actually really admire their stance here, because many a time we all have been in a position where we probably have been part of the majority, right? And again, this is not getting political, so don't try to dig into the rabbit hole, because it's not what I'm doing. But sometimes, just sometimes, you're actually part of the minority who stand. And again, no matter where you sit, I just think for myself, it was actually quite brave of them. And you know who played for Manly, the two players in particular, all three or four, I think, depending, but you get what I mean, right? Now, the Manly fan base as well seems very split, as I've been reading through Instagram, Twitter. Like I said, there's a vocal fan, and there's also, those who are not vocal. My challenge, though, is that the reality is, when it comes to this particular subject of the rainbow kind, I don't want to say too much here, it's always going to be split. However, in saying that there's sponsorships as well that have to do with alcohol and have to do with gambling. Now, again, I'm not talking about it in a political sense, but the reality is, yes, if you're going to use a Christian backdrop, then you must use it for all things. That's the reality, right? You can't necessarily use it for one thing and not the other. I'm sorry, that's not how it works. And in particular as well, playing on a Sunday, all right? And this is coming from somebody who is a Christian myself. So I want to try and basically point out that if you're gonna clean, books, so to speak, from one shelf and leave the others messy, it won't look right. You're better off cleaning all books from all shelves, right? Every single shelf, all right? Does that make sense? Now, again, this is not to take aim at anyone. It's just me looking at it holistically from a an HCB lens, basically. Now with Manly doing that, the question is, does that then open, I guess, the floor for more teams to perhaps look at this? Because granted, it is a league and women, it's a women in leagues round, and yet this came out. And I think that's also the controversy too. But yeah, ultimately though, you know, it's ultimately at the same time, the players who didn't want to play, they shouldn't be harassed. They shouldn't be violated physically and or verbally or looked at in different ways because they didn't want to do it because they didn't feel comfortable with it. You don't have to, right? Human rights is human rights. But at the same time, in this world we live in the society we live in, we've got to accept that there's things that are just going to happen this way. It is. And I think Volandis summed it up well. You know, it's not political. It's just basically a human right. And that's it. That's it. All right? That's it. I guess for mine, like I said, it's not about what I think. You know, I guess it's about looking at it as a whole. And to be fair with you, it is what it is. That's it. You know, I look at it in the sense that, yes, there is a time when you're going to make a stand, and they did, those players did. But at the same time, the other players of Pacifica heritage too, not just to make it all about Pacifica, but you get my point. I'll name them, Tapau as well as Paseka, right, in particular. Obviously, you had Harper as well as, who's the other player? Smalley. I think, and Sigiara is there. But you get what I mean? Who was there as well? Walker. I think those are the five. Anyway, you get my point. Particularly Tapau and Paseka coming, you know, from Tongan and Samoan communities, namely. I think it was brave for them. Yeah, so obviously some people may praise the seven who stood down, but I think at the same time we should also congratulate and praise those who still played, regardless, because again, there's going to be a lot of things thrown their way too, right? That's the reality. That's what happens, and that's why I think ultimately at the end of the day, Manly failed their team. Manly failed their club. Manly as a whole organization failed big time. They left players out there in the lurch, full stop. No matter where you sat, they left them out there, right? And you let the fans and stuff think and talk about things and split in decisions. And regardless of whether you like it or not, this very moment when they brought out the jerseys has changed the club. It's not a small thing. It's not a small thing at all. It's not. Anyway, I think I'm done there. I just thought I'd throw it to you guys, yeah? As I sit here pondering, relaxing, keeping low on COVID, I think my brain is sort of ticking and I'd like this. But yeah, give me a thought, you know? What are your thoughts? And again, I'm going to be deleting comments that are going to be argumentative because it's not meant for argumentative. It's supposed to be a place for critical thinking, okay? Rugby league can do that to you sometimes. Surprise, surprise. Anyway, take it easy. See you guys next time. And yeah, I guess to everyone who made their choice, you know how to hold the ball. Take it easy. See you guys next time.